The inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I am Dan Hurley. Over the past several weeks, the issue of locating and developing appropriate facilities for Cincinnati's homeless has been a staple of the headlines. Last week on Newsmakers, we focused on the proposal to move the City Gospel Mission from Elm Street and over the Rhine to Queensgate, a move that is opposed by Queensgate business owners. In addition, Lighthouse Youth Services is in the process of constructing a new facility in Mount Auburn, and the YWCA has identified a site on Reading Road for a new women's facility. Why so much activity at once? One reason is that in March 2009, the Cincinnati Hamilton County Continuum of Care for the homeless completed a comprehensive plan to change the way that, and I quote here, that the community delivers homeless and housing services, how homeless individuals are expected to respond, and how the public and private funding systems can work cooperatively. The concrete actions that we are seeing now are a reflection of the implementation of this plan. I thought it would be good this morning to get back in touch with the Homeless to Homes plan and to get a sense of how all the specific pieces fit together. To do that, I invited Kevin Finn, the director of the Cincinnati Hamilton County Continuum of Care for the Homeless. Kevin, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Thanks for having me.
You know, there's all these pieces and people forget about the big framework, you know.
Sometimes they're all tied together.
That's right. Sometimes we lose the forest for the trees, and thank you for being here this morning. Sure. Are the ones that I just sort of ticked off, City Gospel Mission, YWCA, Lighthouse Youth Services, are those all reflections of this plan? Is that really being motivated by this framework that was laid out 2 years ago?
Yes. Some more specifically than others. For example, the Homeless to Homes plan calls for taking our emergency shelter capacity and using roughly the same number of beds, but in a more strategic way to meet the needs of certain parts of the homeless population. So the plan called for a separate shelter for 18 to 24-year-olds. That is the facility that Lighthouse has under construction.
So in other words, to get those young people out of the drop-in center? Is that
Yes.
what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
And to provide them with services that are really targeted at the needs of an 18 to 24-year-old so that we can keep those young homeless people from turning into old homeless people. Mm-hmm. Similarly, there's a recommendation in the plan that single women have their own facility. There's a lot of evidence that there are single women out there who are not comfortable coming into shelter if there are also men on site. So the recommendation is for a facility that serves only single women. That is the facility that the YWCA is looking to develop. The City Gospel Mission is in a slightly different position. The plan calls for an expansion of the number of faith-based shelter beds.
Right.
And that is the City Gospel Mission. Now, the City Gospel Mission looked at their current facility and looking to expand, decided that the best way for them to move forward in accomplishing that expansion was actually to relocate. So while the plan didn't specifically say that had to be a new facility, what they are trying to do is 100% consistent with the plan.
So if we take a look, and I've got a map here that's part of a presentation that's being used, and these sort of indicate, it's hard to see, I know, but the one on the far left in the Queensgate area is City Gospel Mission, and there's also the other ones that are being indicated that we were just talking about. What you're trying to do is not have everything so concentrated in, let's be specific, in over the Rhine, right? We're trying to get things out of over the Rhine.
We have a lot of partners that have come together to make the things that are currently happening move forward. And I think the answer you'd get to that question depends on which of our partners you would ask.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest, I don't really care if all of the facilities move out of over the Rhine or that area. My concern is that they do a better job of meeting the needs of homeless people. Each of those shelter providers looked at the needs of the population they want to serve and where those residents would be most comfortable, where their volunteers that come in and provide services on site would be most comfortable, lots of different things like that. And each of those agencies decided this is the area that we're going to look in. And they each did it pretty much separately. So I don't really think that it necessarily was that they were seeking to move away from Over the Rhine and Washington Park as much as they found other areas that better suited their needs and the needs of the people they want to serve. For example, Lighthouse is currently operating day services for homeless youth in the Corryville area. So the site on Highland Avenue is very close to where they are already providing those services. The YWCA operates a battered women's shelter that is not located in the urban core. So looking in the area they're looking at on Reading Road is along the lines of what they currently do as well.
We have some footage of the new Lighthouse facilities for youth services, and they can roll over this while we're talking here. There we go. This is on Highland Avenue in the Mount Auburn area. And so what kind of, how would a young person end up in a place like this? Is it that young people will the word will get out on the street that this is available? Are there street workers who are out there going to help them get in? How would a young person know that that's available?
There are a number of different ways that a young person could come to know the services available. One is Lighthouse does have street outreach workers who are out looking for homeless teens and youth who are living on the street. They are a population that are sometimes reluctant to go into the adult shelter system, which is one of the reasons why we need this facility. That is one way. Also, when an 18 to 24-year-old does present at another shelter, those shelters will make them aware that there is a facility targeted at their needs that they could go to instead. Locally, we also have a service called the Central Access Point, which handles the intake function for 6 of our homeless shelters. So if a person calls CAP, as we call it for short, asking what their shelter options would be, if they are 18 to 24, this would be the facility they would be referred to.
Okay. The YWCA, we tried to get some footage of that, but to be perfectly honest, we shot the wrong building. But a lot of people would know the building. It's a great big, it's the old car barn right on Reading Road, right across from United Way building. What's going to be done there? What's the Y going to do? Are they going to use the building itself, or they're interested in the site?
My understanding is they're interested in the site, not so much the building. And they have already begun discussions about partnering with the United Way, that the United Way is in need of additional parking across the street. The YWCA wouldn't need quite that big of a footprint. I think it's 2 or 3 acres that is available there. So they are already beginning to partner with some other entities that are in the community, such as the United Way. But I think what they're looking at is they would want to tear down the existing structure and build new.
Now let's be clear about this, because a lot of people would know about or have heard of the Y's battered women's shelter. This is not a replacement for the battered women's shelter. Is that correct?
No, it is not a replacement for the battered women's shelter. What it is a replacement for is the 42 beds for single women that are currently housed inside the drop-in center. As a part of this planning process, we undertook an effort involving national experts on meeting the needs of homeless women and determined that the YWCA would be the appropriate operator of a facility that was only going to serve women, and the drop-in center has been a part of that planning process. So what we are looking at is that when that facility is open, the new YWCA facility, that the 42 beds for women at the drop-in center would either go offline or be repurposed for something else or something like that.
So it's a chance of reducing the number of, the drop-in center is by far our largest emergency shelter.
Yes.
Now, in these new facilities, the goal too, as I understand it, and it's in the plan, again, referencing back to the plan, is to have a different kind of space, not dormitory space, but a whole host of facilities that are in these spaces, whether we're talking about Lighthouse or the Y, that would better serve the people there. How would you describe that? What kind of qualities?
There would be, in terms of a sort of quality of life aspect, there would be smaller sleeping accommodations, different things like that. I think what's important for people to understand about that is having that sort of setup allows for incentives to be placed for people to pursue different things that will move them out of homelessness. So the entire plan proposes what we refer to as a step-up model, where a person who simply wants a safe place to lay down and go to sleep will receive one, but that a person who wants a safe place to lay down and go to sleep, but also is going to work on employment and work on sobriety, work on addressing their mental illness, whatever the case may be, receives incentive to do those things by receiving a slightly higher level of accommodation in the facility, and therefore having those smaller sleeping quarters allows us to provide those kinds of incentives.
And then also part of this proposal, and again, as I read the plan, is the idea of getting various kinds of services into these facilities, including some medical services.
Well, one of the primary differences would be that these facilities would all have day services. Very frequently, currently, homeless people are basically turned out of the shelter during the day with no specific purpose or anything during the day, other than that the facility doesn't have the ability to accommodate them. All of these new facilities would be able to have, could be job training, could be all sorts of different things, could be medical care offered on site during the day. And what we seek to do in that regard is to better partner with those who are already providing medical and mental health services in the community, as well as have the ability to accommodate them on site.
And that's the linkage between another thing that sort of has come up in the news recently, requests for $2 million from the Indigent Care Levy, that $2 million of that levy go to care for the homeless. Is that correct?
The recommendation in the plan that we're seeking to implement is to increase the level of case management offered within the shelters. Very frequently, the moment at which a homeless person gets connected with services they need is the point at which they are able to sit down with a case manager who knows the resources, and that case manager is able to point them in the direction of what they need. That is often a first step out of homelessness. Well, if we don't have case managers available to work with the shelter residents, or if they have to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time to sit down with a case manager and receive that sort of guidance, all we're doing is increasing the length of time that that person is homeless, which is something we want to try to avoid. So the case managers would serve to more efficiently and effectively connect homeless people to healthcare resources, mental health resources, employment resources, all of those different things in ways that would help them move on.
And I'm making a leap here, but as I read about healthcare services in this, is part of this an assumption that if you can deliver healthcare services in these smaller settings, you can also avoid overuse of emergency rooms, which are very expensive places to deliver services.
It definitely has a sort of prevention component to it, and because our request was referred into the discussion of the Indigent Care Levy specifically, it has taken on a specifically medical focus. But I think the increased case management would have an equal impact in terms of employment and mental health and all those sorts of things as well. It has been cast in a medical light, rightfully so, because we're talking about indigent care money. But it would have an impact on not just healthcare, but many other things as well.
Okay, so I guess all right, so it's coming from the Indigent Care Levy, but it's really about making sure there's case management to get people to whatever the right services are.
Including medical, right.
Any number of these movements, plans, actions have caused reactions in certain communities.
I'm well aware.
You are. What have you been doing to try to address those, meet those, get ahead of that?
In regard to a specific facility?
Well, let's talk about City Gospel Mission. Last week, Sherman Bradley was on. The business community declined the invitation to come on to speak their point of view. Have you tried to work with the business community there?
Not directly. Again, the recommendation from the plan that we want to see implemented is that we have increased capacity in faith-based shelter. Back to my earlier point, the plan does not say City Gospel Mission had to move, but obviously we're in favor of the expansion. where they have determined as an agency is the right place for them to go has not really been something that I have directly been involved in. The goal that we're trying to accomplish is that they have that increased capacity. If they felt as an organization that they could have developed that additional capacity at their current site, we would have been supportive of that.
Okay.
What we want as an organization at the Continuum of Care is the increased capacity.
Okay. And maybe, because I don't know that this is really part of it exactly, but how does, and there's been real discussion in the community about the future of the Anna Louise Inn. Does that fit into this situation?
It does. There are different parts to the plan. Everything we've been talking to up to this point basically falls within the emergency shelter section of the plan. But I would say that the real meat and potatoes of the plan is if we want homeless people not to be homeless anymore, we need to provide them with housing. So there are sections in the plan that address transitional housing as well as permanent housing for homeless people. One of the recommendations in the permanent housing section is to have increased capacity of permanent supportive housing for single women. That is what is proposed to be located within the Anna Louise Inn after its redevelopment. So the Anna Louise Inn project, the 85 units that would be there after its renovation, is in line with the recommendations of the Homeless to Homes plan. The plan does not specifically say it has to be located at the Anna Louise Inn, but it does say that we want to have that additional capacity.
Okay, so all of those pieces, I mean, we've talked about a tremendous number of these. All of these pieces are part of this plan. I want to encourage people to take a look at the plan too. If you'd like to read the Homeless to Homes report for yourself and find out more about the work of the Continuum of Care, check out their website at www.cincinnaticoc.org. Kevin, thank you. This is a lot of moving parts.
Yes, it is.
And I suspect, because
it's hard to keep it all straight.
There's so many moving parts, I suspect you're going to be back on this one. So
I'd be happy to.
Thank you for being here. Stay tuned. 15,000 Latinos are coming to Cincinnati in 2 weeks for the 82nd LULAC convention, and you're invited.
Trabajar por Procter & Gamble. Una latina, me encanta que la compañía apoya programas que realmente ayudan a nuestra comunidad. Ya pronto vamos a estar apoyando a la conferencia de LULAC.
Welcome back. That was an invitation to the 82nd Annual Convention of LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, the largest and oldest Hispanic organization in the United States. LULAC serves all Hispanics in the country and is dedicated to advancing their economic opportunities, educational attainment, political influence, health, and civil rights. Cincinnati has had a local chapter since 2005. The 82nd Annual Convention of LULAC will be held in Cincinnati from June the 27th to July the 2nd, and all of us are invited. To talk about this exciting event and the ways Cincinnatians can participate, I am joined this morning by Lourdes Ribera, the president of the Cincinnati chapter of LULAC, and Jason Riveiro, who is the executive director, or what's
State Director.
State Director for LULAC on the Ohio level, on the Ohio chapter, and is also, I need to mention, a candidate for Cincinnati City Council this fall.
Yes,
so welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
This is really an exciting convention. There's a lot of conventions that come to town, but Lourdes, how many people do you expect here?
We expect about 15 to 20,000 people, and we're very excited to be hosting this magnificent event because it gives us the opportunity to welcome people into our city. We have a beautiful city, beautiful landscapes, wonderful attractions, but we want to really highlight the quality of our people in Cincinnati.
You know, Jason, one of the things that, and you and I have talked about this, I think,
right.
It's pretty amazing for a place like Cincinnati to get this convention. This is not a huge, there's not a huge Hispanic population here. Why? How do we end up with this?
You know, it was really a orchestrated effort from the whole community, and we really beat out some outstanding competition. We beat out Dallas and Orlando. We actually Disney, and they had invested significantly in that. It's rare for or actually a city to win the convention the first time around. So we started very early, going out there and trying to get all the votes necessary, because this is kind of a non-traditional way of contending for a convention, as opposed to a small committee deciding where your organization is going to go. The members themselves decide every year during the convention. So you had several thousand delegates that we had to really win over by our pitch, and it was an effort by our local council and also the Cincinnati CVB.
Lourdes, I have made the point that it's not just Hispanics who are invited to this convention.
No, we want everyone to come to the convention. As a matter of fact, what we want to be able to reach is the whole community. We want to reach students, we want to reach corporations, the community, and we're making a big effort to broadcast that in the community.
So if a person wanted to participate, could they participate just by signing up and registering? Could they actually volunteer to do something? What are some of the ways they could?
Well, not only they can go into the website and register in the LULAC website,
and we will give them that.
And we'll give you have the link for that. But they can volunteer by registering in the LULAC Cincinnati website, which is www.lulaccincinnati.com, and they would just click on the volunteer section. We have a whole menu of options where people can choose where to volunteer. To run this convention, we need 500 volunteers. We're happy to tell you that we have 300, but we need to close the gap. We need everybody's.
So you still need another 200 volunteers.
Yes.
And then aside from that, I think what we kind of emphasizing again, that this is open and free to the public. The only thing that we charge for are the meal events. And so what we want to really communicate the message is that many times conventions have this stigma that, oh, it's only for the members or the delegates of that organization. But actually, we have a 3-day long expo that's over 200 companies are looking for people ready to hire. We have a health fair if you need a mammogram checkup, free of charge, a cardiovascular testing. This will all take place starting on Wednesday, the 29th of June, going all the way to the 1st of July. And so that's there at the Expo Center. So please come on by. We're going to have a lot of attractions there.
So for people who are coming in, you've got some major speakers as I looked at the convention lineup. People are invited to come to that as well? You can hear speakers and
yes,
get in on some of the discussions that are going on, because let's face it, the whole question of immigration, the whole question of the role of Hispanics in the future of the United States, these are important issues. This is really a chance to get involved in some important discussions.
We have some free seminars, and everybody's invited to the public. That's the thing, everybody can come to the convention and come for free for most of the events.
Okay. One of the things I want to point out, and I will reemphasize this, I've been invited to lead a discussion after a little play that's been put together called Cincinnati, the City of Immigrants, which is based on a book that the Hispanic Chamber did a couple of years ago, and that's going to be at the Freedom Center.
Yes.
So, somebody with me, like an old Irish name, I've been invited to be part of this, so it really is something that's open to people.
Yes. And that's funny you mentioned that, because that's an important piece that, as you mentioned, the Chamber had detailed out the different waves of immigration over several hundred years, and they commissioned it
Who are
as a play.
Who are some of your major speakers who are going to come in?
Well, so we have confirmed, we have Vicente Fox, former president of Mexico, and his wife Martha Fox. We also have Kathleen Sebelius, Health Department, I guess.
Right.
And then we also have Secretary of Labor Hilda Solis, that is confirmed. We have numerous other ones. We have Jose Hernandez, who is a U.S. astronaut, Latino, and we're going to actually celebrate that at the ballpark in Great American on Saturday, recognize his efforts.
Okay, I want to make sure everybody knows how to find the information. By the way, Vicente Fox's family came through Cincinnati originally, so that's a great story. If you would like to learn more about LULAC and about the upcoming convention from June 27th to July 2nd, check out the website at lulac.org. And on June the 28th, as I said, the Cincinnati, a City of Immigrants, has been turned into a short play, and that will be at the Freedom Center at 7:30. And give us the local one for volunteers.
www.lulaccincinnati.com.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you for being here. Good
Thanks for
luck.
having us.
This is a great convention that's
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for getting here.
Thank you for having
Thank you for
us.
making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week to meet the women and the men shaping our community for the future. Have a good week.